Transform your space with Ada Grace Cleaning Service. At Ada Grace, we believe a clean home is a happy home. Our professional team offers tailored cleaning solutions that fit your needs and schedule. Whether it's a one-time deep clean or regular upkeep, we use eco-friendly products to ensure a safe and sparkling environment for you and your family. Why choose us? We have a reliable and trustworthy staff, customized cleaning plans, eco-friendly products, satisfaction guaranteed. Let us take care of the mess so you can enjoy your free time. Contact Tanya and Elaine today for a free quote at 601-502-5376 and experience the Ada Grace difference. And oh yeah, tell them Sonya sent you.
She say sports. She say sports. She say sports. She say sports.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonya, and welcome back to She Say Sports. Please welcome back host of Inside the HBCU SportsLab, SWAC Digital play-by-play voice, and Sideline Reporter, Charles Bishop. What's up, Bish?
Hey, what's going on, Sonya? Great to be back on with you.
Same here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Thanksgiving is coming up, but we got a couple of big games in the next this weekend and next week, but we're going to talk about the SWAC championship. So let's get started.
Mm-hmm.
So Charles, the rivalry between Jackson State and Southern goes back many decades, both being historically significant programs in the SWAC. On December 7th, this will be their fourth time, which seems weird to me, that the two teams have met in the SWAC championship, with the Jags leading 2-1 wins. This will be Coach T.C. Taylor's first time taking this team to the SWAC championship. Charles, what has Coach T.C. Taylor approach been in preparing the team for this high-stakes SWAC championship game?
I think during the course of the year, they've used a term that I think they better put on T-shirts fast, we-fence. And I think they've done a tremendous job of complementing each other, where you're talking about the offense or the defense. But this defense has played some lights-out football. They've held teams scoreless going into that Alabama State game, like the last 4 games. And even in that Alabama State game, Alabama State wasn't able to score in the fourth quarter. So you're talking about a team that's, as TC has talked about on many occasions, they're built for December. And one of the things that sticks out with regards to Jackson State, they are a physical bunch, and it sort of reminds you of those MEAC type teams where they grind you down, or right. Even if you are an older Jackson State fan, it reminds you of those 80s teams, those 90s teams that really would grind you down with a punishing running game. And they have one of the most punishing running backs in the SWAC, in Irv Mulligan. A lot of people just say, give him the damn ball. And, he is a tremendous running back. He's one of those guys, he runs downhill and he reminds you, he puts you in the mindset of a guy like Destry Wright. If you remember Destry Wright back in the late 90s, running back who came downhill, came with a lot of punishment. It was hard to bring him down, and that puts you in the mindset of Destry, definitely.
Absolutely. So, Charles, how does Coach Taylor plan to handle the pressure of coaching in a championship game, especially with so much on the line for the program's legacy, his legacy?
He does it every week. I mean, coaching at Jackson State is a pressure cooker job.
Hello.
So, I don't think the championship game the SWAC championship game is not any less pressure than coaching on homecoming or whatever the case might be. It's a demanding fan base, but you know that when you take that job, that's just an occupational hazard, the Jackson State fan base. But I don't think it's any more pressure. I think the Jackson State fans, when a championship ring is on the line, they come en masse. They will be full throat. It's going to be a fun game, and I think when you take a look really at that game, that is a different Southern football team that you're going to be seeing. I've called them the Cardiac Cats all season because I believe they have 3 overtime wins, just and where they've come back literally in the second half of games. And I think there's going to be a fun SWAC championship. And I think you're going to see the Southern fan base as you have not seen them over the past couple of seasons. I mean, if you're frank about it, I don't think they had a lot of confidence in Eric Dooley. And you saw the attendance sort of look at that, especially when they were in the SWAC championship game. And I think the jury was still out with regards to Jag Nation with Terrence Graves when Southern played Jackson State early in the season. But, I think that fan base has really rallied around Terrence Graves, and he did something. He reminded people he's a championship coach. He has nine championship rings, and that's significant when you have a coach who stands on his resume. And I think that's something that I think the light bulb has gone off with regards to Jag Nation in that regards, because they've really made some personnel changes, and they've kind of galvanized around some of those personnel changes. Even so, to the point there was a quarterback change over the last couple of games. So it's a different looking Southern football team.
Yeah, that's true. And so, Charles, and like you said, he had to show them who he was. It's time for Coach TC to show further who he is. If the Tigers beat the Jag in the SWAC championship, will this take him out of the shadows of Coach Prime's era, or would winning the Celebration Bowl further his own era and legacy?
Well, I think he's done a good job of sort of separating himself. I mean, I think
but he hasn't won a championship, though.
He has not won a championship. So, but I think it does. It's another litmus test in terms of continuing to burnish his brand, and I think that's the thing that you look at with regards to TC. He has firmly sort of established his brand over the past couple of seasons, and we're on the precipice of Jackson State doing some big things under his tutelage. So we'll have to see how things go, especially when you start taking a look at, people remember November. That's the saying. And here we are. We're in November, and he has an opportunity to burnish his TC Taylor brand, this guard the yard brand, if you will, in terms of winning the SWAC championship.
Absolutely. And I'm like you, he's done an amazing job thus far. I'm hoping, things go well. I really think it will, but we will see on December 7th. So, Charles, how has Jackson State's defense evolved throughout the season, and what will be the key to stopping Southern's offense in the SWAC championship?
Tough question. I mean, in terms of how they've evolved, I think they've been a good group over the course of the season. I think you go back to the Alabama A&M game where they gave up points, and we saw this in the early part of the season where Jackson State basically would build a decent lead, and you'd see some slippage, if you will, in the fourth quarter. You go back to the Alabama A&M game, and that game was probably a little closer than it should have been. But I think whatever was said after that game, they've taken it to heart. Like I said, there were 4 games in a row. Teams did not score in the second half. You really saw it on display against that Florida A&M game, which I think is that game that the fulcrum, if you will, where you saw how dominant Jackson State could be. Didn't allow Florida A&M to get into the end zone in the second half of the game. And I think when you take a look at them, it's been whatever adjustments that they've made after halftime, they've pushed all the right buttons. So you take a look at Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman, UAPB. They were pitching shutouts, in the second half of the game. And even like I said, I really looked at this Alabama State game as a real litmus test, hostile atmosphere, everything being on the line in terms of trying to win the SWAC East. And Alabama State, to their credit, they did a tremendous job of bottling up Herb Mulligan, but Jackson State still figured out a way to get it done. And if you're a fan of old school, just good football, when the offense had empty possessions, it's punt and pin them deep and play great defense. And that's what you saw in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Charles, what specific offensive schemes is Jackson State looking to exploit in Southern's defense and vice versa?
Well, I think, the calling card for Jackson State all season has been running the football. I don't think, they're going to get away from, the blueprint that has worked. But, it's been limiting the turnovers, I think, is a big thing for Jackson State's offense. I think Jacoby Morgan has done a tremendous job in terms of steering the ship and making the plays that were there to be made. So, but they've done it. I call it kind of old school type Jackson State offense, firm running game, and great defense. So, and explosive plays when you need to make explosive plays. So I think those are the keys for Jackson State. And I think if you're Southern, you've got to figure out a way to get consistent play from quarterback Jalen Woods for Southern over the past couple of weeks has been a steadying presence for the Southern offense. And I think the big thing is you take a look at Southern's running game, which, was nothing to write home about. They were at the bottom of the SWAC in terms of running the first half of the season, but they've done well enough over the past few weeks. They move all the way up into fifth place in SWAC and rushing. They've gotten the running game up and going. Some of that was some personnel changes they made along the offensive line, and they've seemingly unlocked something on the offensive side of the ball. So it's going to be a tremendous chess match.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, speaking of Southern, what kind of adjustments might Jackson State need to make if Southern's offensive rhythm gets going early in the game?
That's it's one of those situations where you have to put faith in defense coordinator Torrento Quinn. Like I said, they've done a tremendous job of making whatever adjustments that they've needed to make after halftime. So you go back to the FAMU game; they were able to figure out a way to get to Daniel Richardson, Florida A&M's quarterback. Same thing when you take a look at a game like Bethune-Cookman, where they've started figuring out what they needed to do after halftime to be able to shut down that offense. They did a tremendous job. I think, you go back to the UAPB game, UAPB, they fly down the field on the opening drive. They're not able to get into the end zone, but, it was one of those situations where there was cause for concern, and they made the adjustments. It's been a team that's done a tremendous job all season in terms of making adjustments to doing what they needed to do to figure out ways to win. And that's, I think sometimes where you say this team was built to play in December, they've done a tremendous job. You take your hat off to the coaching staff with regards to what they've done on adjusting to whatever team has been able to exploit Jackson State on and changing the flow of the game.
Absolutely. So, Charles, Southern has a rich history in the SWAC. What will it take for the Jaguars to claim the title and further solidify their status within the conference?
They have to play error-free football against Jackson State. And like I said, I think the running game is something that has gotten on track for Southern. When you take a look at players like Kobe Dillon, C.J. Russell, over the past few weeks, they've done a tremendous job. And Jalen Woods has been a steadying presence, I think, at the quarterback spot. So there is cause for concern with regards to this Southern football team. And, when a team just continuously figures out or finds a way to win and they start believing, when that boulder is coming downhill, that's a tough thing to stop. So that's why I'm looking forward to this game, because I think, it's a battle of wills. TC Taylor wants to solidify his brand at Jackson State, the guard yard brand. Terrence Graves has said, he's a championship winning coach. I think he solidified himself this past season. And we've all said during the course of the year that SWAC West is a sort of a wacky world over there on that side. Yeah. No clear-cut favorite. But Southern has an opportunity with the win over Grambling to actually sweep the SWAC West. So that says a lot. And they've done it every imaginable way. I called the game where I think the boulder started going downhill when they beat Texas Southern. You talk about literally stealing a victory from the jaws of defeat. Where Southern was able to get that game into overtime and get the win earlier in the season. They did what they had to do to chase Prairie View down after halftime and get that game into overtime. They had a 5 overtime win over Bethune-Cookman. There's something scary about a team like that.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is true. So, Charles, how have the rivalry and competitive history between Jackson State and Southern shaped this championship matchup, and how does it motivate the players?
How does it motivate the players?
Yes.
Well, I don't think there's going to be much motivation in this. I mean, it's Jackson State Southern. I mean, it is what it is. It is probably, and I've always said this for a while, for a game to not be a classic, not a Yeah, I know people call it the boom box classic, but for it to not be a classic, it is just one of the best pure rivalries
Yes,
in all
ever.
of HBCU football.
Yeah.
It is two fan bases. They mirror each other in terms of their fervor for their school. You cannot tell a Southern Jaguar fan that Southern is not the best thing on planet Earth. And same goes for Jackson State. So I don't think you need much to get up for this game. And I'm expecting a tremendous turnout. We know Jackson State fans, anytime they sniff a championship, they're in place. The bets are gonna be rocking. And I think you're gonna see that old Southern crowd that we got accustomed to seeing. Jag Nation, I think, will get on the road for this game because they are sniffing a championship as well. So it's going to be, it's going to have that sort of 90s feel to it, where,
I agree.
if you remember back during that time where you had to be in place X number of hours before
Yeah.
kickoff. And that was just some really, really fun times when you start taking a look at that time frame of Southern Jackson State. And then you take a look at it, Southern, they've won 8 in a row. I think from 2013 all the way through to 2021, when Prime was real sick and Jackson State went down there and broke that 8-game streak. Now Jackson State, they've won 4 in a row. So, Southern's looking to get some get back in this game, and they feel like their time is due.
That's true. So, Charles, how can both teams use their special teams to create momentum or change the flow of the game?
Southern has a tremendous field goal kicker, and I think that's one of those situations where I believe it's a push. Jackson State does a tremendous job with regards to special teams. Matt Knoll, even this past week, was Special Teams Player of the Week, and he did a tremendous job of pinning Alabama State deep in their own territory. And Jackson State has proven all season that they are a very, very difficult team to run up and down the field on. I mean, at some point, adjustments are just made. So you have confidence that they're able to do that. But I think special teams is going to be huge in this game. And it's if you're a real lover of football, you love to see these nip tuck games, these 5-yard fights in a box that I think this game is going to be. Where special teams has to play a big role in it. I mean, and you start taking a look at Jackson State is tremendous in the red zone. Southern has done a decent job of stopping teams in the red zone. Jackson State has done a decent job of stopping teams in the red zone. Special teams is going to be huge in there. So, every little field goal attempt is going to have some weight to it. And even punts are going to have weight to it because when you can pin an offense deep in their own territory, every now and then, and we saw it just this past weekend, a defense can create some opportunities for their own where you saw Jackson State was able to get the safety in the end zone.
That's true. That is true. So, Charles, you mentioned the fan base a couple of times, and I was like, I'm going to get to that. Stop it. We could be talking about the fan base or the band. That's me and your thing. So, Charles, when exploring the fan bases of Jackson State Tigers and Southern Jaguars, you have to talk about, like you said, their loyalty, culture, and how they contribute to the atmosphere to both teams. What sets Jackson State's fan base apart from other teams in the SWAC, and how does that loyalty shape the atmosphere at home games?
It's the fervor, and like I said, it's the. I always tell this funny story. If you're sitting in church and somebody's child, it's graduation, and there's always a cheer when they say they're going to Jackson State, and sort of if they say they're going somewhere else. It's the fervor that nothing else is better on this planet than a Jackson State education. And I say this is why both fan bases sort of mirror each other, because you get that same thing from the Southern fan base. And when these two fan bases meet, I mean, we always laugh. They're both superbly aggressive on social media. So that's what makes it the rivalry even more fun. I think there's a healthy respect from both sides, and Jackson State fans, they will look at a lot of other teams like you're not really our rival, right? And that they treat them as such.
And that is so weird. It's like, what are you talking about, Alabama? No, we're not.
Yeah, so
you're not our biggest rival. Get out.
Yeah, that absolutely happens. So, but I think in regards to Southern, there's a healthy sort of respect because Southern has had success. over Jackson State for a period of time. I mentioned 2013 to 2021,
Yeah.
but you go back through the history of the Southern Jackson State rivalry, you will see that one team will reel off 2 or 3 in a row, and the other team will reel off 2 or 3 in a row. So it depends on the era in which you come through Jackson State. I'm fascinated by the 1962 team that won the Black College National Championship, beat Florida A&M in the Orange Blossom Classic. But in 1962, they lost Southern 19-14. So, it's a tremendous rivalry.
Yeah, that's true. And before we move to the next question, it's funny that you mentioned the church. That tells you how loyal Jackson State fans are, because how you gonna and boo a child in church because they going to another school? And it tickles me to my soul every time. I be like, oh my gosh. They be like, he will be attending all club.
Yeah,
like,
that's
stop it. And the kid is like this with his certificate looking around. I mean, why would you do that? But it's hilarious. It is hilarious.
I think that's the fervor. That's the fervor. And, for a city to rally around Jackson State, and I've often joked that on any given day, the mayor of Jackson, the athletic director, or the head coach of Jackson State are going to be the most important person in Jackson. It just depends on the day. So, I just think that is a very real thing, and for Jackson State fans to have that unashamed love of Jackson State is very unique within the HBCU sporting culture. And I've said this for years. Whether Jackson State is such a unique sort of fan base, they don't share that love with the in the geographic footprint that is the SEC. You don't get a Jackson State fan and an Ole Miss fan. I root for Ole Miss and Jackson. No, there are a Jackson State fan. I'm going to leave Ole Miss, Mississippi State fans to do their thing, but the Jackson State fan is the Jackson State fan.
Now, I will say this, I'm not an Ole Miss and Mississippi State fan. However, if they win, if they beat certain teams, like when Ole Miss beat Georgia a couple of weeks ago, I was happy about that. So, I gave their kudos, but I'm not hotty-toddy. That's not my thing. But I totally get what you're saying. But you're right. So I'm not supposed to even say congratulations either. The way you're looking. Oh, okay.
You have to deal with the 78-year-old grandmother in church that's going to, roll her eyebrow at you saying hotty-toddy.
Some people they click like on my post. So, so it was some that liked it. It was some that don't. And moving on, how do both teams' fan base show their support for their teams outside of the stadium, such as through social media, tailgating, or community events?
I've talked about, basically both the Jackson State and Southern fans. They are strong on social media, strong, very braggadocious on social media. Tailgating atmosphere, is second to none, whether you're in Jackson or you go to Baton Rouge. These fans show up, and I think Jackson State
show up to tailgate from Southern on Mondays.
Very much so, and I think the Southern culture is getting back to that. Like I said, I think there were some years where they just did not have the confidence that they probably wanted to have in the head coach, but I think you're starting to see the pendulum shift, and Terrence Gregg sort of reminded people of that listen, I know how to win football games. I'm a championship coach, and sometimes that needs to be said.
You're right. Last question, Charles. What we have seen this season from both teams, who takes home the SWAC trophy?
This is Jackson State show, so
No, I want you to. I don't want you to be biased. I want you to, from what you've seen from both teams.
I think it's going to be a great chess match. I think Jackson State does have more than enough, I think, to win the SWAC championship. And I think that running game poses a real challenge for whomever's in front of them. I think that's what sticks out with regards to Jackson State is how physical they are. They're going to keep pounding the rock. They're going to keep pounding the rock. And, there's a point in time where you have to start bringing an extra body down there inside that 5-yard fight inside the box.
Right.
And that's where you've seen Jackson State be able to get some big plays over the top. So when you start concentrating on Jackson State running the football, And again, the proof is in the pudding. We see it week in, week out, where teams start creeping a safety up and things of that nature, and Jackson State is able to exploit that. So, like I said, I think Jacoby Morgan's done a tremendous job in that regards in terms of taking the plays that have been there for him to have and making some big plays downfield. So I think it's not going to be the same game that you saw back in September, though. Okay. I think this is an absolutely different Southern football team, and like I said, what makes them so dangerous is that they believe they're going to figure out somehow, some way to get a victory, and they start making plays where they really, when it's time to make plays, and those teams are just as dangerous as they can be. Like I said, 3 different times they've won in overtime this season. Yeah. So that's what's going to make for an interesting chess match. We'll see what the change in quarterback does for Southern. Like I said, Jalen Woods inserted literally 2 weeks ago, seemingly has steadied that position. And if you talk to a lot of Southern fans, they were saying that's actually one of the last pieces that they really needed, because they knew they had a good backfield. They knew the offensive line was in the process of gelling, which they have. And the defense has been their saving grace all season. Their defense is, and we talk about Jackson State's defense, but right behind Jackson State is Southern.
Well, we'll see. You still didn't answer it, but okay. I like it. Okay. Well, Charles, as usual, thank you for joining me on the show. However, it's time to play What You Know. And I have Thanksgiving multiple choice trivia. You know, whatever. You always fussing about, this is dumb, this is stupid, whatever. So get with it.
I have so much fun answering the football stuff, and then, you know, it's like big bucks, no whammies on this one. Exactly.
You're gonna do well. I really, because you're like you know stuff that I'd be like, why do you know this? So you may know some of it. I was like, oh, I can see him knowing this. I know you know this. What process refers to soaking a turkey in the saltwater solution before cooking it? Is it soaking, brining, marinating, or pickling it?
Marinating.
Brining. I can't believe you.
Yeah, I knew it was gonna happen.
Look, this is going downhill quick. In 1995, this tickled me. This popular Thanksgiving vegetable was the first to be grown in space. Was it corn, potato, collard, or beans?
Let's go with corn.
Potato, Charles.
Yeah, man, I knew. Over 2. Oh my gosh. I knew this was gonna trip me up.
According to a poll, what Thanksgiving side dish is the least popular among Americans? Is it green bean casserole, dressing or stuffing, mac and cheese, or mashed potatoes?
Green bean casserole.
Very good. Very good.
1 for 2.
What year did A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving debut on television? Was it 1963, 1983, 1973, or 1953?
Let's go with 1973. 63.
No, you're right.
Oh, I was right. Okay. 73. All right.
Yes.
All right. 2 for 2. 2 out of 4. All right, I'm 50%.
Are pumpkins technically a fruit or a vegetable?
Pumpkins are a fruit.
Correct. Anything that has seeds is a fruit.
Okay, according to the old CBOC, I'm at 75% now.
Yeah, yo. Yes. Okay. How many calories are in a typical holiday dinner? Is it 2,500, 6,000, 3,000, or 4,000?
4,000.
3,000.
Interesting. That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. I think you'll really love this one.
Talk about random.
Huh?
I said talk about random.
No. Which U.S. president was the first to officially pardon a turkey? Was it George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, or George H.W. Bush?
I'm going to go with Reagan on that.
In 1989, Daddy Bush presented a presidential
Wow.
pardon to a fine Tom turkey, and it's been an annual tradition ever since.
That's pretty cool trivia. I like that. I'm gonna remember.
I know.
that.
I thought you would like that. I thought you
Yeah.
would get it. I was like, because he knows silly stuff like this.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good one.
which two NFL teams have played a game on Thanksgiving Day since 1966? Is it the Bears,
You can stop. The
Steelers,
Detroit.
let me finish, Dallas Cowboys, or Detroit Lions?
Well, Detroit. No, I'm sorry. Dallas started.
Two teams.
Yeah, I'm saying Dallas and Detroit.
Okay. But what was you were adding to the tribute?
Well, I was going to say that I think these were the two teams who actually accepted the proposal of playing on Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they'd asked a few teams, but no, every team was like, no, we're not going to do that. Thanksgiving is for families, and
They
it
wanted
was
it.
that was actually the Cowboys and Lions, and that's why you will see the Cowboys and Lions from here to perpetuity.
Every Thanksgiving, that is true. Which state produces the most cranberries? Is it Mississippi, Illinois, Wisconsin, or Florida?
Mississippi, who else?
Illinois, Wisconsin, or Florida?
Oh, I want to go to the heartland, Illinois or Wisconsin. Let's go Illinois. It was Wisconsin. Yeah, I knew I had to go to Dairyland somewhere.
Yeah, you were close. I was like, come on, say it. Last one. What is the average time for people to gather for Thanksgiving dinner? And this is not just Black people. Is it
About to say,
1 to 3 p.m.?
all day.
Is it 1 to 3 p.m., 4 to 5 p.m., 12 to 1 p.m., or 5 to 7 p.m.?
I would guess 4 to 5 because by then that's the second. That's normally the Cowboy game, so that's when everybody's normally eating.
Which one did you say?
4 to 5.
Incorrect.
1 to 3.
p.m. is 42% chose 1, but my family, we're like, I think it was like 12%. We're 12 to 1.
See, I was thinking of the normal Black family. Everybody's together by 4 to
But
5,
I told you
and
this
everybody's
is
watching.
Black people.
Everybody's watching the Cowboy game. According to that state, everybody watching the Detroit Lion game because they always the early game.
So yeah, 1 to 3. Charles, as usual, thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure
Tell the
thing.
listeners, huh?
Oh, sure thing. Enjoy it as usual.
Thank you. Tell the listeners how they can follow you on social media, listen to Inside HBCU SportsLab, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably on all social media platforms. I always forget them. But you can hear me Tuesday and Thursday, Dr. Gavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time. We also do a special edition where we recap the games on Sunday morning. I'm also doing play-by-play for SWAC Digital. I've done it football this past season. You'll also hear me on SWAC Digital during the basketball season. I got a few games during the basketball season lined up. So looking forward to it.
He does an excellent job as well. And guys, you can follow me on Facebook at She Say Sports, Instagram She Say Sports 23, and please subscribe to our YouTube page, She Say Sports. Well, that's our show for today. Until next time, this is Sonia with She Say Sports. Happy Thanksgiving.